Node.js is one of the best examples of modern software, of high productivity software. In the software landscape, when it comes to software products, we have moved from very slow moving multi-year cycles to some of the fastest moving companies being able to do the same in a span of months, and the progressive groups moving even faster than that. The platform has been built from the ground up with the principles of the web. In fact, it is the JavaScript interpreter that was built into the Chrome browser. It had such great properties and such good performance that it was pulled out of the browser and made into its own product. It now has support across all of the cloud vendors, and it has the largest ecosystem and set of components of any platform in software today. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and navigate to nodejs.org and download and install onto your desktop Node.js. You should see a window like the following. The green square will note your operating system, download that into your machine, and install it. Once you do, within the Mac operating system, you will be able to run it at the terminal, and within Windows, you can open up a command prompt. Simply search for Node.js in your search bar, and you should be able to run it just like I'm about to do on Mac OS. Here at the prompt, I'm going to enter Node, and as you can see there, I get an interpreter line that I can interact with. So if I add two numbers, for example, you can see here that I have an interactive shell. So I'm going to go ahead and exit. And now let's go back to the presentation to speak a little bit further about what this platform is before we come back and we make use of the ecosystem of components. So if we go ahead and go back, I'll speak next to the tremendous resource of modules that exist on this platform that is offered through NPM, which is the Node Package Manager. This is a way to distribute and host the components that are part of this ecosystem. The question of this distribution, the question of sharing, the question of discovery is one that every major platform needs to address. When it comes to the Node ecosystem and the Node Package Manager of NPM, as mentioned before, it is by far the largest ecosystem. It has now surpassed, on average, 1 billion daily downloads. Nothing else is anywhere near it. And it has a stock of 785,000 modules and growing. A module, you can think of it as a library, or you can think of it as a package that is available for you to build new components. Now, that is a tremendous set of resources that you can bring to bear on any new application or prototype that you are exploring. And so when it comes to creating new applications, and certainly in the prototype phase, nothing matches the availability of components that you have in this ecosystem. And as mentioned before, once you move into production, there's also great infrastructure to support those applications for you to deploy. So what is a module more specifically? It's a bit of JavaScript code plus some JSON. If you've never seen JavaScript before, it's what runs on your browser, and you can think of it in this case as a little bit of logic and some metadata. More specifically, I'm showing you here in this slide a little bit of metadata, what you see on the right, and a bit of code that we will write after we do this. So in this case, let's go ahead and move onto our command line, and I'm going to go ahead and create an application. Here I will simply call it, well, I'll make a directory first, and I'll call it Able. Then I'll move into Able. Now, once I am inside of here, I'm simply going to initialize my application, and this will create the metadata that I showed on the previous slide. I'm going to go here with the defaults. I'll call it demo. And for the rest, I'm simply going to enter myself as the author and a license of MIT, but that's all that I'm going to do. And so I'm going to go ahead and say yes. And as you can see here, this is the metadata that has been created. And we have simply initialized an application. And so if I list my files, now we have a package which has simply the metadata that we just created. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and add a component. And this is what I meant before about being able to make use of this ecosystem. I'm going to do that by simply entering npm install, and I'm going to add a server framework for HTTP applications. And so in this case, I'm going to go ahead and install it. And you can see that this is reaching across the web to the registry and bringing back all of those packages. It brings back the server plus any dependencies it might have. Now, when it comes to the server side and writing the application, that is a quite simple application to write, as you will see in a second. I'm going to go ahead and create a file, and I will simply do that by entering touch. And in this case, I'll call it index.js, and then I will simply open it with a local editor. You can do that with any editor you like. I'm going to do it with an editor called Sublime Text. And as you can see here, I have a blank file. Now, before we go any further, let me go ahead and show you a diagram of what we're going to build. And as you can see here, we're going to create a server that serves a file called hello.txt. We will make a request through the browser, much like you do every day when you check the newspaper headlines or navigate to some other website. The server that we construct will serve from a public directory that we will create in a minute, a file called hello.txt. Now, servers are major pieces of infrastructure with hundreds of thousands of lines of code. However, we're going to be able to create leveraging the packages that we have and that we have already installed, and we will be able to do that in a handful of lines. So let's go ahead and move back into our server, and that is here. And so we're going to go ahead and add a few lines of code. If you remember, the name of the package was Express, and we're going to go ahead and require that package. This is the way we express that intention in this framework. Then we're going to go ahead and create an application from this. We do it by simply instantiating Express. At this point, all we need to do is to be able to indicate the directory that is going to serve our content. And we do that by entering Express static and the name of the directory, which I mentioned we will write in a minute, the public folder. And then we will go ahead and listen to requests on the following port. And in this case, we're going to enter 8080, and then we'll simply give ourselves a message on the console that says the same. And we'll say running on 8080. And that is all we're going to need to do in order to write our server. Let's review. We went ahead and required the package, the same one we installed. We went ahead and made an instance of it. Then we specified what is going to be our directory to serve files. And then we specified and started our listener for the port that we are writing here, which is 8080. I'm going to go ahead and save this file. Now we're going to go ahead and move to the file system. Let me go ahead and clear here and show you we now have a few more things. We have package.json, a backup to that file, we have index, and we have node modules. Now we need to create a directory called public, and now move into public. And inside of public, we're going to go ahead and create the hello.txt. And we do that by entering touch hello.txt. And then I'm going to go ahead and open up that file, much like I did the other one. And all we're going to write here is hello world. And go ahead and save. And go ahead and close this one as well. And now let's go ahead and move back to the directory. And as you can see there, we now have the public, and inside of public, we have our file. Let's go ahead and confirm that. And as you can see there, we do. So let's go ahead and clear. And we're now back up at the directory, and we have written that small file of code. And now we're going to go ahead and run index.js. And if we didn't make any mistakes, this is the point at which we will run our server. Let's go ahead and run that. And as you can see there, we're running on 8080. Let me go ahead and open up a browser window here. I'm gonna drag it over. And here I'm simply going to enter localhost 8080, which is the port we specified. And if we hit return, we get cannot get because the name of the file is hello.txt. And once we do that, as you can see there, we get hello world. So the speed with which we created this, again, is one that is magnitudes of order faster than anything that we have used in the past in order to build new pieces of software. And that is very much the spirit of this ecosystem. Having a lot of small pieces, as I mentioned, loosely joined, and that you can bring together to create new functionality. It is a tremendous resource. And as I mentioned in the beginning, it's an example of the type of platforms that are now in existence. Node.js being by far the one that is the most agile, more flexible, that has the richest amount of resources. So this is something that you can go ahead and try on your own. If you have some difficulty, that is to be expected. This is not a trivial example when it comes to configuration. However, you can see that with a little bit of help, you could get there.